Hey there, Red here, welcoming all you listeners to Red Hunt, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of relationship stories on Reddit. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some juicy tales that'll keep you glued till the end. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join me on this thrilling journey. Am I the antagonist for suggesting my sister speak to a therapist on her own and not supporting her enough during her rough patch with her oldest daughter? My sister has 2 living daughters. Joy is 15 and she is from my sister's first marriage. When Joy was 8, my sister was pregnant with her second daughter when her husband and the girl's dad sadly passed away. A month later, my sister lost her second daughter during the pregnancy. The losses were hard for both, but Joy especially struggled to cope afterward. She had been so looking forward to her baby sister. Losing both her dad and sister in such a short period of time, and then when my sister remarried 18 months later, it wasn't as easy for Joy as my sister wanted it to be. My sister's third daughter is Hannah, and Hannah was born when Joy was 10. Joy was never excited about Hannah during the pregnancy. My sister really made a big effort to involve Joy and to get her excited. At the time, Joy told her she would never be excited for a half-sibling the way she was for her real sister, and she told her she didn't want the new baby. She wanted her baby sister. My sister made a lot of effort to change Joy's thoughts on Hannah. When Hannah was a baby, she would hold her while she and Joy spent time together, and she would try to get Joy to cuddle up with her while she was holding a sleeping Hannah. But once Hannah was around, Joy was distant. She admitted she resented that Hannah was born and she lost her real sister. I suggested therapy for them back then, and my sister half listened and sent Joy to therapy. It has helped, even if it wasn't how my sister wanted it to be. Joy is still disinterested in Hannah, but the resentment does appear to have faded or gone. She's not hostile anymore. She's just not making that sibling relationship her priority. A few weeks ago, my sister learned that Joy has been writing letters to the baby sister she lost. It looks like she started writing them while she attended therapy and she just never stopped. My sister decided to read some of these letters, and she was unhappy with the things Joy wrote. Things like how she is her only sister, how she wishes she was here, and how she had been so excited not to be an only child anymore. Joy also wrote about stuff happening in her life. My sister hated how Joy ignored Hannah's existence as her sister. The two of them started fighting because my sister told Joy she has a living sister, and she is just as important as the sister she lost. My sister came to me after Christmas, and by that point, things were pretty rough between her and Joy. She told me she's disgusted by Joy's dismissal of Hannah and how she doesn't know what more she can do because Joy never outright bullies Hannah, but she refuses to try and love her. I suggested my sister could explore some therapy for herself since she never got any after everything that happened. I told her it might help her figure some things out. She told me therapy is a waste of time and money because look at what it did for Joy. She then accused me of trying to pawn her off on therapy instead of supporting her and said I'm her sister and should be doing more. Am I in the wrong here? It sounds like your sister is struggling to understand and accept her daughter's feelings, which is preventing her from seeing the bigger picture. Joy has been through tremendous loss, and it's only natural for her to still be grieving and struggling to bond with her half-sister. Therapy has clearly helped Joy in some ways, and it wouldn't hurt for your sister to give it a try as well. It's important for both of them to have open communication, empathy, and understanding for each other's experiences. It's not fair for your sister to expect Joy to immediately love and accept Hannah as her sister, especially when she had such a deep connection with the sister she lost. Your suggestion of therapy is not an attempt to pawn her off. It's to help her gain a fresh perspective and potentially find healthier ways to cope with her feelings. Am I the antagonist for ignoring another teacher and telling them I'm busy in front of my class? I am a 30-year-old male and have been teaching at a school for 2 years now. I am currently in my 7th year of teaching and can confidently say that I am good at my job. The students seem to like me and perform well in my class. On the other hand, there is another teacher in my subject named Mr. D, who is 53 years old and has been at the school for 20 years. He is very particular about how he wants things done, but unfortunately the majority of students dislike him due to his extreme rudeness and anger issues. Some students even believe he may have bipolar disorder because he can go from being overly friendly to aggressive very quickly. Whenever students bring up this topic, I try to change the subject. Ever since I met Mr. D, he has consistently treated me with extreme rudeness. This ranges from passive-aggressive comments to openly saying negative things about me to students. However, I have always brushed it off. My head of department has even taken the initiative to address this issue with Mr. D twice, without any request from me. Several months ago, Mr. D had a minor meltdown and interrupted my class, demanding that I speak with him privately. He criticized my teaching methods and claimed that I wasn't meeting his expectations. I tried to interject, but he wouldn't allow it. I stood there in shock as this went on for a couple of minutes. When I finally managed to turn away and look into the classroom, I noticed that about half of my students were witnesses to our conversation. I abruptly ended the conversation, went back inside, and had to excuse myself to the bathroom to calm down. Around 10 minutes later, he sent me an email apologizing for his behavior. I responded the next day, and he continued to apologize multiple times. Since then, I have minimized my interactions with Mr. D and try to communicate with him solely through essential emails. He has noticed this change in behavior and approaches me, trying to be nice and strike up conversations. However, I only respond with a single word and then walk away. Recently, during an assembly where some students performed in front of the entire school, Mr. D approached me and commented on how nice he thought it was. I responded with a nonchalant and quickly moved on. Later, he came to my class to talk to me again, but I told him that I was busy and instructed him to send me an email instead. I then turned my back on him and resumed a conversation with one of my students. One of my students witnessed this interaction and jokingly pointed out that I walked away from Mr. D during the assembly. They found it amusing because they also dislike him. After discussing this with another teacher, they mentioned that I was being rude and should try to be nicer to him. So, am I the asshole in this situation? It sounds like you have been dealing with Mr. D's rudeness and inappropriate behavior for a while now and have tried to handle it in a professional manner. It is not your responsibility to be nice to someone who consistently treats you poorly and undermines your teaching. You have every right to set boundaries and keep your interactions with him to a minimum. It's clear that you have tried to be civil and maintain a professional relationship, but if he continues to disrespect you, it's understandable that you would want to distance yourself from him. Your colleague's suggestion to be nicer to him might come from a place of trying to keep the peace, but ultimately it's up to you to decide how to handle this situation. Keep doing what you're doing and don't let his behavior bring you down. Am I the antagonist for calling my sister bitter and telling her she should examine her parenting instead of going off on other people? My sister and I had our sons around the same time. My nephew turns 7 in October and my son turns 7 next month. I was 20 when I had my son, and this was a big deal with my sister. She is 10 years older than I am, and really had no expectations when it came to me as a mom. She predicted I would end up single and my son's dad would bail and that I would give up within the first year. Instead, we are married, and we had 2 little girls after our son. We are very different parents. My sister is very strict and regimented as a mom, and has a lot of rules and swift, harsh punishments for bad behavior or any subpar behavior. My husband and I would probably fall more into a gentle parenting kind of deal. We teach our kids how to act in public, but we do so in a very different way than my sister and her husband. My nephew can be very challenging, and he's an angry little boy. I suspect it's because his parents are often angry, and he is picking up on that and building resentment, which has made his behavior worse. Our parents have brought this up to my sister in the past, and she has told them it's not true and claimed my son behaves far worse, despite them saying it's not even close to the truth. Our parents had both boys on Saturday, and my sister and I arrived at the same time to pick them up. Our parents' elderly neighbor approached my sister and told her that she should have a word with her son because of how rude and disrespectful he is to others. My sister told the neighbor that she had the wrong sister, and my son was the kid who gets into trouble. The neighbor said she knows the boys apart and knows who the mom to each is. She told my sister that my son was very sweet and showed no disrespect, the way her son did. My sister was furious. The neighbor told her that thanking someone, my son, for picking something up for her does not warrant being yelled at and cursed at by a small child. Apparently, my nephew got an attitude and told her nobody has to help her because she's old and can't do anything for herself. My sister went off on the neighbor and said her son is so much better behaved and accused her of spreading lies. The neighbor walked away mid-tirade, and then my sister started to turn on me. Instead of letting her, I said she needs to stop being so bitter and examine her parenting instead of going off on people who complain about her son's behavior. I told her I would not let her take it out on me that she was wrong about me as a mom, and that I feel like a lot of her anger comes down to that she hates that I don't get the same comments. She tried to yell at me, but I just got my son off our parents and left. My parents asked me what happened and I told them. They said I did nothing wrong, but my sister and her husband are both now coming for me for what I said, and they told me it wasn't my place to say all that disrespectful stuff. So am I the asshole here? It seems like your sister has some unresolved issues regarding her own expectations and assumptions about your parenting. It was not disrespectful for you to point out that her anger and bitterness may stem from the fact that your parenting style has been effective and well received, while hers has not. Your sister's reaction to the neighbor's comments also indicates that she may be in denial about her son's behavior. It is not surprising that your nephew is exhibiting angry and disrespectful behavior if his parents are often angry, and he witnesses that on a regular basis. Instead of acknowledging this, your sister chose to deflect and attack the neighbor. Your parents' support of you suggests that they also recognize the differences in parenting styles and the fact that your sister may need to take a closer look at her own approach. How can I better communicate with my GF? My girlfriend F23 is always mad at me and 19. As it has basically become a weekly recurring event by now, I've decided to get other people's opinion on this. My girlfriend gets mad at me very easily, and usually for no apparent reason. Today while working from home, my girlfriend asked me to go to a cafe. I always want to do everything to please my girlfriend, so I complied. While we were getting ready to go, she asked me if dogs are allowed in the mall. She wanted to go to the mall next to the cafe while I was working. I told her they are, so she decided to take the dog. While getting ready to go, I asked her if we can be a bit quicker as I need to work. This agitated her and she didn't speak to me during the entire car ride. We then went to the cafe and she said that she would leave the dog with me while she goes shopping. This frustrated me as I told her we could have left our dog, 5-month-old puppy, at home. I told her to take the dog as I need to work. This made her very angry, and she then stopped talking to me. It's important to note that when my girlfriend gets upset with me, she gives me the silent treatment. This can last from a few hours to more than a day. We then got food and ate in silence. The cafe was new, so they didn't have Wi-Fi, and I didn't have a strong enough signal inside to work, so I told her I would have to go to my university, around the corner, to work. This seemingly pushed her limits. She started to get ready to leave. I asked her where she was going and she said she was going home. I reminded her that I can't drive her home, and that was one of the last things she said to me until now. We then left the cafe and I reminded her again that I can't drive her and that I need to work, and she said, just leave then. So I went to my university. She came about 30 minutes later and ended up waiting in my car for over 1 hour. After getting home, I had to study. I asked her if we could talk after. She didn't answer me. Received silent treatment for about 1 hour. I asked multiple times and eventually she said you can talk. She meant that literally. I spent the next 30 minutes trying to get info out of her about why she is upset instead. I tried to console her and talk things through. She refused as she usually does and continued to ignore me. After a while, she said about 5 words, and after trying to get her to talk about the problem for 20 minutes, she asked me to just act like nothing happened. So I did. Now we are sitting on the couch not talking to each other. I know this will pass, it always does, but her continuous anger towards me is taking a toll on me. Every time it hurts me more and more. I will happily take the blame for anything and do everything to make her feel good. It's starting to hurt me so bad that I don't know what to do anymore, and I always have to watch what I say as I worry about this happening. Does anyone have advice for me on how to handle this situation? I only want the best for her. It sounds like you're in a difficult situation, and it's understandable that you're seeking advice. Dealing with someone who has anger issues can be challenging, especially when they give you the silent treatment or refuse to communicate about the problem. Here are a few suggestions that might help. 1. Open and honest communication. Try to have an open and honest conversation with your girlfriend about how her anger and the silent treatment make you feel. Explain that you want to understand her concerns and work together to find a solution, but her going silent only makes it harder. Seek professional help. If her anger outbursts and silent treatment continue to have a negative impact on your relationship, it might be beneficial to consider couples counseling or therapy. A professional can provide guidance on effective communication strategies and help both of you address underlying issues. Ultimately, it's important to find a balance in the relationship where both parties feel respected and understood. If your girlfriend is unwilling to address her anger issues or work towards resolving conflicts in a healthier manner, you may need to reevaluate whether this relationship is truly best for both of you. I saw the text that her and her ex send each other and she's upset with me. Jaden and I have been together for a year now, and for the most part, everything has been great. However, there is one issue that has caused some problems for us. When we first made our relationship official, Jaden told me that she was still friends with her ex. She mentioned that she had let him know about me and asked how I felt about her maintaining a friendship with him. I expressed that I was okay with it because I believe in allowing people to choose their own friends. She mentioned that he didn't react well to the news and they stopped talking. Initially, I didn't think much of it. A few days later, Jaden informed me that her ex had reached out to her and expressed his wish that he had done things differently to keep their relationship intact. This is where my concerns started to arise. Jaden asked me again how I felt about the situation, and this time I admitted that I was more uncomfortable because it was clear that her ex still had feelings for her. She agreed with my assessment and told him to keep his distance. I also communicated my boundary of not feeling comfortable with them hanging out alone. I thought this was a reasonable boundary to set. Just a few days later, Jaden told me that her ex had come over to her house, helped her clean, and ended up falling asleep on her couch. She went to her room and slept there, and they had breakfast together in the morning. This incident made me very concerned and felt betrayed. I was angry because we had just discussed this issue, and she assured me that nothing would happen. However, she didn't inform her ex about my discomfort. This situation continued to confuse me and made me lose trust in Jaden. It seemed like every time we hung out, she would be texting her ex. She would try to hide it because I had expressed that I didn't want to hear about him constantly since it made me uncomfortable. One night, I reached my breaking point. It felt like no matter where we were or what we were doing, her ex would somehow come up in conversation. It messed with my head and made me feel like I was living under his shadow. I looked at her phone and saw some messages that confirmed my fears. It showed her ex saying I love you, have a safe flight, and her responding with I love you too, bug. I wish you could just teleport into my arms. This sight crushed me, especially since we had discussed the issue before. I showed her the messages and she didn't seem bothered by it. I was hurt and I decided to leave the house. She asked me why I was leaving and if I didn't want to talk about it. I responded that there was nothing left to discuss since this crossed a line for me and went against what I had expressed as my comfort zone. I left, hoping to calm down and think clearly. After 3 hours, I returned to her house. She was in her bed, listening to sad music. I lay down with her, and we talked about what had happened and why I was so upset. She mostly defended herself by saying that it was just friendly banter and how they talked normally. She claimed that the reason for the "I love you" messages was that she never knew when it would be the last time talking to someone. I needed to take some time away, so I left again, and she agreed. I have been feeling confused and lost since then. She has been blaming me and saying that I don't communicate well. However, every time I try to communicate my concerns, nothing changes. I admit that I've chosen to avoid confrontation unless it's a major issue, but that doesn't mean everything is okay when it's not. I'm torn because I love her, but this situation is unfamiliar, and I don't know what to do. My friends, family, and therapist have all suggested leaving her, but it's difficult for me to make that decision. I'm really sorry to hear about the difficult situation you found yourself in. It's clear that you truly care about your girlfriend and have been trying to make things work, but it seems like her behavior with her ex has caused a lot of pain and confusion for you. From what you've described, it seems like you've been very open and communicative about your boundaries and discomfort with the situation. It's important to have boundaries in a relationship and to feel respected and listened to when expressing your concerns. It's concerning that your girlfriend has disregarded your boundaries and continued to engage with her ex in a way that makes you uncomfortable. If you do decide to continue working on the relationship, it's crucial that you have open and honest conversations with your girlfriend about your feelings and concerns. It's important for both partners to feel heard and understood in order to build a strong and healthy relationship. If she is unable or unwilling to address your concerns and respect your boundaries, it may be worth considering whether this relationship is truly right for you. Be a garbage human being? I'll spoil something you love. In 2005, I worked in the mailroom of a bank. To be clear, it was a section of the office floor surrounded by baffle boards, allowing us to sort mail. Let me just say, the best part of the job was delivering the mail on a small trolley and having the opportunity to chat with colleagues while being offered biscuits. Adjacent to the mailroom was a telephony department responsible for secured collection calls. Since it was the only telephony department nearby, we could hear every word spoken by the staff. There was one woman in particular, let's call her Brenda, who stood out as being incredibly loud and obnoxious. Brenda was a horrible person. Lacking any empathy, she refused to help people facing financial difficulties, seemingly relishing in their pain. Additionally, she had a major attitude problem. Unfortunately, she was good friends with the manager, so nobody seemed to address her behavior, and she continued to be unpleasant. The worst part about Brenda was what she did during her downtime between calls. She would laugh at our customers and speak negatively about them. For example, she would say things like, "Can you believe that, idiot? Just because your partner left you and you have kids doesn't mean you can avoid paying your credit card bill." Or boo-hoo, that customer's mom passed away. She probably died of embarrassment having such a terrible son. As you can imagine, she was a despicable individual. Now, about me. I was a huge Harry Potter fan, the type of person who would go to get the books at midnight on release day. I would even stay up all night to finish reading the book before going to sleep. One day, shortly after the release of Half-Blood Prince, which I had already finished, Brenda was telling her colleagues how much she was enjoying the book and couldn't wait to finish it. She hadn't made much progress based on what she was saying. I immediately emailed my friend who worked in mortgages. He was also a Harry Potter nerd and shared my dislike for Brenda. I explained the situation, and he practically sprinted to my desk. We patiently waited for Brenda to finish her call with a customer, and then we started loudly discussing how shocked, devastated, and saddened we were by the part where Snape pushes Dumbledore from the astronomy tower. We couldn't believe Snape would commit such a treacherous act while Harry was frozen under his invisibility cloak. It was truly unbelievable. Brenda lost her mind. She stormed over to our desk and glared at us, but there was nothing she could do. She continued to be unpleasant, but at least I got some satisfaction from that encounter. That must have been incredibly satisfying. Brenda sounded like a truly awful person, and it's great that you and your friend were able to knock her down a peg by spoiling a major Harry Potter moment for her. It's always satisfying when karma bites back at someone who has been unkind and obnoxious. Hopefully that served as a wake-up call for her, even if it didn't change her behavior completely. It's also nice to hear that you were able to find some joy and excitement in being a Harry Potter nerd. Keep embracing your passions and standing up to people like Brenda. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.